I'm John Kane, and hey, guess what? I'm not at home. Yeah, I made the trip to New York. I'm in studio with my good buddy Reggie Johnson. It is so great. I mean, look, we talk every week pretty much,
Yeah,
but it's a
pretty.
little
Yeah,
different
yeah.
now.
It's different because I'm seeing you in right across the other side of this console here.
All right, so if you're catching us, we are streaming it on Facebook. We will put the video up on YouTube probably as well. But I do have to remind people, even if you're not in New York City, and I realize that this show also brought in Washington D.C. and WPFW, um, you can go to your smart speaker anytime, and and if you do it when the show comes on, so if on Thursdays at 3 o'clock you ask your smart speaker to play WBAI, you're going to get the show, and any other show at any other given time. Don't be afraid to use your smart speaker to listen. The website, you can go to WBAI.org and you can live there. Watch it, and I am streaming it, so I'm hoping it works out. I know a lot of times the streaming doesn't always work out just great because of internet connections and that kind of stuff. So we'll do the best we can. But we are in studio, so we are going to take your calls. So I look forward to doing mostly a show about calls, but I do have a few announcements. There is a reason I'm in New York, not just to see Reggie, although that should be reason enough.
Of course, it should be.
Keep in mind, I used to do this every week.
Every week.
Every week, I used to make the trip.
Yes, you did.
And if you don't know where the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation is, it's an 8-hour train ride. It is literally Buffalo. So you've got to go to Buffalo and then go another 30 miles to get to the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation. That's the trip I make. I used to make every week to do the show. And I'm not saying that as a complaint. It's look, I think it was important to be on the radio here. I think it's important to be on the radio in New York City and in Washington, D.C. I haven't made that trip to Washington yet, but I still make the trip here when I can. But part of the thing I try to do is try to double up. I try to make it so that when I do come into town, I try to do something else as well. So as many of you know, because I talked about it incessantly, I guess, about the film that I was a part of producing called The Long Hope. We are streaming that film tonight, and it is Thursday night for those who may be catching the show after it runs live. We are screening the show, I should say, at the Brooklyn Children's Museum tonight at 6:30. So as soon as I leave here, as soon as I complete the show, I'm going to run off to the Brooklyn Children's Museum, and we're going to screen The Long Hope. So I hope that I hope if you're hearing this that and you have the evening available, that you'll make it over. Obviously, if you can almost, then you know you're pretty. That I was a big part of producing. And look, if you listen to this show, I posted not only the trailers, but I posted excerpts, and much of it explains a little bit of what the film is. But unless you sit and you spend the 2 hours, 1 hour and 54 minutes to be exact, and catch everything that's in this film, you're not going to understand the full message. And the full message is about the illegal doctrines, legal doctrines, I call them illegal legal doctrines, that the United States has employed specifically to oppress Native people. And look, there's a lot of racism in this country. There's a lot of marginalized people. But Native people experience a unique level of racism because of these three legal doctrines: the doctrine of Christian discovery, the trust doctrine, and the plenary powers doctrine. These are legal foundations established in the slave era of the early 1800s that have allowed the country, the United States, to do things to Native people they could do to no other people. So that's what the film covers a great deal of. So I hope you'll come out and you'll watch the film. I am taking the road. I've streamed it multiple times, multiple locations. In fact, I'm doing it in Rochester, New York, on the 20th of this month. On the 24th, I'm going to Woodbury, Connecticut, and we're going to
okay.
stream it at the Woodbury Public Library.
All right.
And I want Native people and non-Native people to see this. I would love to see legal practitioners, lawyers, law scholars, and educators see the film, because, as I say when I do this show, I'm going to borrow a phrase here, Reg. Don't get offended. Prove me wrong. You know where that one comes? That's a Charlie Kirk thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, had to do it. Look, if I say something, you think I got wrong, then prove me wrong. Okay. Come on, prove me wrong. So come see the film. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of Charlie Kirk references.
No.
I might steal that one though.
Well, he's not going to complain.
Yeah, he's not going to complain. So, and you know what? I don't think you can. And I don't think you can prove me wrong. I think most of what I try to cover in this show and in this film is fact-based. It's true history. It's uncomfortable history. Don't get me wrong. Nobody feels good about it, least of all me. But frankly, American, they should feel good about this history. So if you want to do something right, then we should erase this. We should remove these legal doctrines, which are already called out in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. They call these legal doctrines that are based on superiority of a peoples, based on religion, national origin, race, ethnicity. They call it legally invalid. They literally call it legally invalid. Now, I say that because there are still courts. There was a court this month. There was a court last month that cited the doctrine of Christian discovery in their rulings. They keep doing it. And of course, every law that's ever been passed about Native people is based on the belief that Congress has plenary powers to dictate the lives of Native people, to regulate the metes and bounds of tribal sovereignty, as they say. So this is the challenge. This is what we're trying to do with the film. That's what I do with essentially every week. So I want to make people aware. I've also produced with my friend Dave Harmony. We've put together a website for the film. It's called thelonghope.org. Just one word, thelonghope.org. There you can sign in. You can register a comment, a review of the film or of the trailers. You can also make a request if you want to host a screening of the film. So you don't have to do this. You don't have to give us any information. But if you want to register on the website, you can do so and then offer a commentary. You can make a request, and you can be notified in advance of any screenings that we're going to be doing in the future. So that's part of what we put it there for. So there is that. Again, I want to remind people that this show on Facebook, I put it up as a podcast. You can find it on just by searching Resistance Radio with John Kane podcast. You can find it. Again, you can ask your smart speaker to do that, and it'll find it for you. So I want to emphasize that because we live in a time where radio has been under a pretty good assault, and frankly, part of it is the changing landscape of media in general, but we are competing. This show competes directly against podcasts, and there are some really good podcasts out there. I don't want to take anything away from them, but we are on the radio. We have a studio. We broadcast. We have a transmitter. We put this thing out in the airwaves. So you don't have to look for us necessarily because Michael G calls it the difference between broadcasting and narrowcasting. That's what he calls it.
That's correct.
So we broadcast and we narrowcast. So there's no reason not to catch us. And like I said, if you hear something you don't agree with, you've got a computer, you got a laptop, you got a cell phone. Research it. Check it out. See if what I'm saying is true. And if you don't like what I have to say, look, we do call-ins, and we're going to do them today. So we're going to take your calls today. I do want to remind people that we are listener-supported radio. This station does not exist without your contributions. Even with the federal cuts in the Corporation for Public Broadcast, we weren't getting that money anyway.
Oh no!
Maybe one day we did it one time, long time ago, but it's been a long time.
It's been 12 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So, but maybe someday if that ever gets funded again, and have ridiculous strings attached to it, like what we can and can't say, which is kind of what's happening with the current administration trying to restrict speech. Um, we need your support. So again, I want to tell people, if you are listening in New York City or however you're listening and you want to support WBAI, here's how to do it. You got to go online to buddy.wbai. That's buddy.wbai.org, and follow the prompts to make a donation. You can become a buddy. You can become a sustaining member of the station by contributing something each month through your credit card or through your checking account. You can make a $5 or $10, $15, $20 pledge for each month, and that'll come out. Once you set it, you don't have to do anything more. It'll come out each month until you otherwise. So that's one way to do it, and that's a manageable way to support this radio station and, frankly, this program. And if you do it, and you do it in the name of Resistance Radio, I will love you forever, because we do on who gets what buddies. I don't know how many I have. I'm sure I don't have enough because there's never enough. We always need more people to support the radio station. So again, you can go to buddy.wbai.org and make a donation, or you can call 1-833-922-4692, or if you want to use letters on your keypad, you can push 1-833-WBAI-NYC. And same thing, you can follow the prompts from the operator to make a donation. If by chance you call that number and you get an answering service, leave your name and your number, and we'll call you right back, because sometimes we get multiple calls coming in, and call will go directly to a voicemail. So if you get that, it's not that we're not here. It's not that we aren't listening. We may be preoccupied. So we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Look, if you want to support WPFW, which broadcasts this show every Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, WPFW in Washington, D.C., which I am also for to be in New York City and Washington, D.C., in those two radio markets, you can go to WPFWFM.org. Again, same deal. Follow the prompts. You can make a donation. Look, they have an app. We don't have an app yet, do we?
No,
not yet. WPFW has an app. So if you want to download the WPFW app, that's a real easy way to donate. It's a real easy way to listen.
That's great.
And we're going to get one day, Reggie. I know we're going to. We're going to do it. Don't tell me otherwise.
Well, click my heels 3 times and say, there's no place like an app. There's no place like an app.
Yes, and WPFW is proving it out. I mean, it's working for them. You can go to their app and you can make donations there, and you can do it in the name of Resistance Radio. You can also call 202-588-9739, or their 800 number, which is 1-800-222-9739. Look, these stations, again, rely almost entirely. And when I say almost entirely, I have to say almost, because there may be people donating who don't listen, but we are basically listener-supported radio. So I know that Bob Henley has been working diligently trying to get union contributions and stuff like that. I don't know that every union member listens. They should. And you know what? They should probably donate too, beyond their union. But anyway, so we are listener support radio. I hope that you will contribute. You know, the thing about DC, and I've always got to mention this, there are careers in Washington that are made on the backs of Native people. There are lawyers, there are lobbyists, there are consultants right there in DC, and some of you are making pretty good incomes off of Native people. You may not be Native, and you may be Native, but if you are working in the halls of government in Washington, D.C., on behalf of Native people, you know you're not doing it for free. You know you're getting paid. Well, here's a good way. You can send some money back to the stations that are carrying this show. And I get asked this all the time, Reggie. And you know, we've had callers. We've had callers that said, hey, what can I do to support Native causes? Well, I'm going to tell you one you can do right now. You can support this radio station and this radio show. First and foremost, keep me on the air, because I'm going to keep you informed. I'm going to keep you aware of what's going on in Native territories and what our current issues are. And I'm going to go to calls here in just a second, but I got to mention one other thing. Since George H.W. Bush, they have claimed that November is Native American Heritage Month. I'm going to tell you, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. holidays or these designations, especially when they're you're not my nation. It's national. That means it's like the United States. I don't consider myself a U.S. citizen. And if anybody takes offense to that, well, you shouldn't. I mean, I have every right to proclaim that I come from and the people that I live amongst. So that's what I do. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm Mohawk, or more accurately, Gunyakahaga. I live in Seneca Territory, or more accurately, in Undawaga. So that's where country does these things. It's always going to have a U.S. emphasis. And of course, making it a Heritage Month or a History Month, like they do with African American History Month, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that means you got to look backwards. But nobody wants to look backwards. Americans don't want to look backwards at their history. You want to talk about slavery? You want to talk about side?
Oh, but that's so long ago.
Yeah, no, it's happening still today, to this very day. Much of this is happening to this very day. So, when I see a proclamation like this, I'm going to use it. Trust me, I'm still going to use it. I'm still going to say, okay, it's National Native American Heritage Month, so we're going to talk about some of this stuff. But let me tell you, this administration. It's the first administration that did not issue a formal proclamation on National Native American Heritage Month.
Really?
Yeah, he did it the last time he was president, but this time he did issue a statement. But let me read the important part of his statement. This is what he said.
All right.
And again, keep in mind who the we are and who the they are. Okay, he says, glorious years of American independence, we honor the generations of Native Americans whose service have strengthened our country. So what part? It's got everything to do with you, with your country. I mean, and you what you're doing is you're saying, you're acknowledging the things that we did for you.
Right.
You can't do that because didn't they do something through the military where they said they were not going to acknowledge African American History Month or Native American Heritage Month? They were struck that. So
because the DAI.
Yeah, DEI, right? No more diversity, equity, inclusion. No more wokeism. So we can't talk about anything related to this current administration that does anything to tarnish the notion of American exceptionalism. So even in Trump's comments, he's only talking about the select few Native people either served in the military for the United States, which for the life of me, I'll never quite understand, but that's a whole other issue. I mean, I think about Native kids right now who might be in the military who are going to be deployed in Venezuela that are on those My good friend Ross, who co-produced this film and funded this film that I'm taking on the road here, he's got family members who have enlisted in the military, and I know this. I don't think shooting brown people in Venezuela is what Native people who enlisted in the U.S. military signed up for.
For real.
But anyway, all right. So that's kind of the little soapbox I was going to stand on. I might mention the film a couple more times before we get done here because we are screening it tonight. By the way, like I said, Woodbury, Connecticut on the 24th, Rochester, New York on the 20th, and on the 15th, Ross and his wife Holly, who's also a co-producer on the film, they're heading out to California for the Red Nation International Film Festival next week. They're heading this weekend, and it's essentially our official premiere at the AMC theaters right there in Los Angeles at the foothills of Hollywood. So, yes, John Kane is going to Hollywood. I'm not going there, but my film is. So
Rochester, is that at RIT or?
No, it's actually at a community center.
Oh, okay.
And the community center is called the Flying Squirrel Community Space.
Oh.
I don't know why it's called that, but that's where the Native American organization, that's where they hold all their events. So, so head to the Flying Squirrel in Rochester, and that's on the 20th. So I'm going to do the show, and then I'm going to jump in the car and drive straight to Rochester because I won't be doing the show from here in New York. I'll be
Right,
doing
I
it
know,
from
yeah,
my studio on the Cattaraugus territory, Seneca Nation. All right, so let me. I know I got a couple of callers that are on the phone already, but I'm gonna give the number out again, anyhow, just for those who will call. The number is 212-209-2877. That's the studio line. That's the line to call in. And look, you can yell at me or Reggie. You know, we're both tough. We can take it. So by all means, if you want to give a shout, offer. You know, when I first started doing this show,
Right.
after I sat in for Teokison's show for a year, I was instructed to do a theme-based talkback show, and to try to keep the callers on topic. I bailed on that sentiment immediately. Michael G, who I think was the studio engineer for me
Right,
at the time. We were
right.
doing it. We're up at the City
City
College.
College.
Yeah, and I told Michael G, if somebody calls in, we're going to talk about whatever they want to talk about, and so that's what I'm suggesting here. If there's anything you want to ask me, if you want to ask me my opinion about stuff that I don't normally express an opinion about, I probably have one. It may not be the one you expect, but I probably have one. If I don't, I will tell you that. So again, let's go to the callers. Caller, you're up first. Here's what I do. First off, let me tell you, turn your radio down. Because if you have your radio on, it's going. We won't be able to hear what you're saying. So, turn your radio down, and I'm going to ask you. I only want your first name just to be sociable. I'm going to ask you your name and where you're calling from, and just so I can kind of keep track. So, caller, you're up first. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Alrighty, John. I'm on.
Yeah, you're on. I got you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm William from one of the Oranges in New Jersey.
All right.
Now, here's a little humor for you. What's your favorite ice cream? Okay, now, I've been a buddy since the 1980s. I love your show. I taught high school history, and I've used your stuff in every one of my classes.
Awesome.
Fortunately,
Nice.
my department chair was close to the Black Panther Party, so I could say almost anything, including the biggest purveyor of terrorism in the history of the modern world is the United States thug.
Yeah, there's a body count you can associate with that, just so if anybody's really questioning that. But yeah.
I know that. Now, a couple of things. I joined the SDS in 1969 because my older brother was at Columbia in 1968. So I was fortunate to start on the right life path. And I'm still at it in organizations. So I have to research the plenary powers. I'm not that familiar with them, but I will when I get home today. And keep up the good work. Now, here is a no-brainer. As quickly as you can, find a streaming service for this wonderful film, this important film, because only 0.0001% of the progressive community is going to be able to see it.
Yeah, on that note, just so you know, we had to kind of get through the one film festival that we're featured in because we had to premiere it there first before we could do it. And we're hoping by being involved in, and this is one of the bigger ones. This one's in Los Angeles. Yeah. It's one of the larger native film festivals. We're hoping that somebody will express an interest in streaming it as a result of being featured at this film festival. If not. Right. If we don't get picked up, we will end up streaming it ourselves. We will put it out somehow on YouTube or some other way. So it will be available.
I gotta see it.
Yep.
I gotta see it. I'm in the Oranges in New Jersey, not in L.A.
Hey, by the way, I am talking to somebody about doing a screening of it in Newark. So
yeah, well, that would be good, very good, because I'm 6.8 miles from Newark.
There you go. So keep pay attention on the show. Well, I'll make all the announcements. Hey, I do have a website. Again, it's called thelonghope.org. So just go thelonghope.org, and we will. I'm just letting you know we will post on that website where we'll be screening next. So.
John, just keep up the good work, and I think you're too polite to some of the enemies out there, but, that's your choice.
Well, you haven't seen me in real action, so.
I can vouch for that one. I can vouch for that.
All right. But love you, and keep on keeping on and fight the power, not each other.
Right.
Which is what I told my high school students every day.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's a good point. William, Mama, thank you for the call. That's a good point. Part of what we did in this film is we didn't take any real shots at even the problems with our own politics. We didn't really take, and I try not to do that. And I know a lot of really good native podcasts, they always have to drift into the corruption that exists in Indian country, and it does exist. Make no mistake about it. But for the most part, even those people who are compromised in native government are victims of this same oppression, and how they've responded to it is different. And we're always working on them. And there's been some terrible leadership, and there's been some corrupt leadership. So, but my main goal is to talk about the oppression we experience from the federal government and from the state government. By the way, just a quick one. Plenary powers, if you want to look that up, look up Sam Alito and the plenary powers, because he raised the issue in the Indian Child Welfare Act case a couple of years ago. He questioned whether plenary powers, which is essentially this twisted contortion of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, which basically said Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with Native people in among several states and with foreign nations. So we're mentioned in the same language as foreign nations. However, Chief Justice John Marshall in the 1930s said that clause of the Constitution, that Congress shall have ultimate power over all aspects of our life, all the affairs of our lives, and regulate the metes and bounds of our sovereignty. And it has existed ever since, and it's treated as settled law. And there are only 2 Supreme Court justices have questioned the plenary powers doctrine. And it ain't the 2 you think. It ain't 2 of the 3 you might think. It was Alito and Clarence Thomas. So part of what I'm hoping comes out of this film is a push on those 3 justices, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. Come on, you girls, get off the stick here. Don't let these be the only ones. I want you guys to step up. So, all right, we'll go to the next caller. Caller, you're up next. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Brother John.
Hey, what's going on?
My name is Ray. I'm calling from New York City, and a shout out to Righteous Reggie. I have a comment, and I also want to pay homage to you. I want to thank you, first of all, brother, for getting rid of those damn Indian logos, Native American logos. Even when I was a kid, John, when I used to see the Cleveland Indian in the logo, it just didn't sit right with me. I couldn't explain. I didn't feel right about it. And I never liked hearing the Washington team. I'm not even going to mention that. I just didn't. You know, it didn't sit right. I am Tutela, African American. Have you ever heard of the Tutela Pony tribe in North Carolina?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
I am Tutela Saponi. I have a bone to pick with you.
What's that?
The 5. First, let me say this. I found out that my great-granduncle was an original member of the 9th and 10th Cavalry. Yeah. You know, when I first found that out, there was a sense of pride. And then when I later found out what the 9th and 10th Cavalry did in their pursuit of Victorio, you know, I'm ambivalent about it. You know, he's my great-granduncle, but I didn't like what the 9th and 10th Cavalry did. The Apaches, Victorio never did anything to the 9th and 10th Cavalries.
Right.
The other thing I want to say is, do you know, I'm so grateful to you for bringing that out about the Osage Indians, the film documentary.
Killers of the Flower Moon, great film, long one, but a great film.
You know, when I researched that, I was hurt. I was hurt to know that someone would have the nerve to marry you and then kill you just for your oil.
Well,
I mean,
no,
how
you left
close
out the part where you have children with you, then kill you, so you can
Yes.
use the children to claim the head rights. I mean,
I
this
was
is
getting
like
to that.
premeditated murder at a level that is almost unmatched
It's
in history.
diabolical.
In history,
It is diabolical.
Yes. How low can you get? How
Yeah.
low can you get?
Yeah.
Well, the bone knife, and I want to thank you for that. A question: Did the old? I heard that the Osage nation used to trade and used to do business with the people in Black Wall Street because they weren't welcome anyplace else in Oklahoma. Is that true?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up Black Wall Street because I actually had David Gran, the author of the book Killers of the Flower Moon, on the show. Reggie, when it
I
first came out, it was a bestseller.
that, right.
And he joined me on the show. I asked him, I said, "You never mentioned the Tulsa massacre and it happened at in the same period, same time period as these murders at the Osage." And he goes, "You're right." He goes, he mentions in the book some of the racism that was, what was going on, but he never mentioned Tulsa. In the film, they mentioned the Tulsa
Yeah,
riot
they
a
did.
couple
They
of
did.
times,
They did.
but no, that's true. There were relationships between Black Wall Street and it's not just the Osage Nation, because a lot of times, people have a tendency when they view Native people, they think of us only in terms of government structure, chiefs and councils and that kind of stuff. I mean, government wasn't an overbearing part of who we were. I mean, we used these means for decision making and collective benefit. But yeah, so the Osage people definitely traded with tradesmen and businesses from Black Wall Street, and I would suspect that was something that helped bolster the economy, that burgeoning economy that came out of Black Wall Street and contributed to some of their success.
Thank you for that. I also want to mention and bring up Ira Hayes. You know who he was,
Yep,
right?
Ira Hayes. Yep.
There was also a gentleman named Henry Johnson in World War I, an African American. They both, Henry Johnson later got his Medal of Honor posthumously, and Ira Hayes, he, of course, we know he was from the Pima Nation.
Yep.
He died a disillusioned man. What I want to say is we both, as Africans and Native American people, we thought by serving our nation that it would bring us a higher standing in the so-called greater society. We both were wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's no question about that. I mean, but we also have to consider this: the abject poverty that Native people and Black people were living in at the time made enlisting, even for the modest income that a soldier made, it was financial stability that they couldn't see in their own places. So there was a real economic factor, but you're right. There was both the hope and desire that at least in the military they wouldn't experience the level of racism they were experiencing in American society, and that by serving in the defense of the United States in these wars in particular, that they would somehow gain a level of acceptance within American society, none of which happened. They experienced racism in the military, and they experienced racism when they got home at levels that, in fact, I would argue, because of other things that were happening societally, the racism was worse post-World War II than prior to it.
You're right. I agree. Poor Ira, they say he died face down in a ditch. And part of that occurred when he went into a bar. I'm not sure where it was. And someone made a crack about the Native Americans. There was a fight, and Ira was beaten up, but he gave a good fight, and he was disillusioned. The Navajo code talkers also. This country owes a great debt to them.
Well, and it's not just Navajo. I think the mistake that people make is that they think it was just one language. Mohawk language was also used as code talking. So it was native. But I got to tell you, to me, I view that as a complete exploitation of Native people.
Right.
They were trying to kill our languages. And in fact, the more they could kill our languages, the more secure their codes were. So
I know that.
And I don't, the one thing I will say about the film that was done with Cage and Beach, Nicolas Cage and Adam Beach, the one thing that did represent accurately in the film was that each one of these code talkers had a soldier, a white soldier assigned to
Yes.
him, whose job it was to ensure that they were never captured. And by ensuring they would never be captured meant kill them before they get captured, because they valued the code more than they valued certainly any native life.
I have a bone to pick with you, Brother John, and I hope you receive it in the spirit of brotherhood.
Oh, by all means, please do.
The 5 civilized nations, I may miss one, the Creek, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, and the Seminoles, they all had slaves. The Cherokee had 4,000 slaves. The difference was that you could, as an African, you could marry into the family, and you could become, well, your children, they were part of the nation. The problem was with the Europeans when they found out, oh, you're letting these Africans marry into your family? We don't like, before we considered you civilized because you had slaves, but now we find out that you let them marry into the family. Okay, it's the Trail of Tears. The bone I have to pick is so many people. Oh, I'm so grateful that Teokason discovered you. I am very grateful. I've been listening since that day. The bone I have to pick is sometimes you're guilty of it. I know you don't mean it. No one mentions that on the Trail of Tears, the African slaves were too, and they died along that trail.
I have mentioned it, but I haven't really done much on the Trail of Tears, and it's not. I don't make any apologies for it. I mean, for one thing, I'm Mohawk. I'm part of the Haudenosaunee, so my culture is a little bit different than theirs. And when I talk some of what took place with the Trail of Tears, I have mentioned it, but I do have to say that I think there's a really significant embellishment on the amount of slaves, enslaved people that were held by Native people. I think that much of that number, I mean, that's a lot of people to suggest that the Cherokee had 4,000 slaves.
4,000.
I think, look, they had that many people die on the Trail of Tears. So to suggest that of the 10,000 people that represented the Cherokee Nation, I guess, that they had I find it hard to believe that number is accurate. And of course, that's used in a way to not only justify slavery, which is one of the ways that it's used, but it's also a way to try to characterize Native people as ruthless as white people, but not fully acknowledging that most of it has more to do with the pressures of assimilation than anything else. So, but you're right. There was a different relationship but it's funny that you say that, because one of the things I always got to bring up about Thomas Jefferson is not only did he have children with a slave, an enslaved woman, most people don't realize, but that woman, Sally Hemings, was the sister of his wife. Right. Let me say that again. I don't know if you knew this or not, but his wife, his father-in-law also had children with an enslaved woman. And when he married his wife, when Thomas Jefferson married, he got Sally as a dowry, I guess. It was given to him as an enslaved woman. She was much younger. She was like almost, I don't know, 15, 20 years younger than his wife. So he had children with Sally Hemings, and for whatever reason, there was nobody threatening to shoot Thomas Jefferson over having children. But I will say that his children were also enslaved, but they were house Negroes, so they lived a much better life than the people Jefferson had in the fields that he was. For those who don't know, Thomas Jefferson was considered a slave master. He figured he used full-fledged accounting to determine how little he could feed and provide to his slaves before the work dropped off. And so he was considered a slave master. But so look, Ray, I want to thank you for the call. Thanks for the conversation. I also had to throw Buffalo Soldiers in the mix with that 9th and 10th Cavalry. They also were oftentimes black men that were used against Native people specifically. But I want to thank you for the call. I appreciate the information, and I will continue to mention and talk about those enslaved individuals who would actually become freedmen and then turn around executed by the Cherokee later after the fact as well. So that's a whole nother issue. All right, let me go to another caller. Caller, you're up next. What's your name and where are you calling from?
All right, I got to apologize for cheating. This is William from the Oranges again. But I have to give a shout out to Reggie, who also is an important part of the program. A couple of points. I used to show a particular version of Geronimo in my classroom. And at the end of the movie, Theodore Roosevelt, in this really dramatic scene, is moving towards Geronimo. And I think he asked him a question. And I think Geronimo said something like, if I could and could do it now, I would kill you for what you've done to my people. The film was graphic. It was appropriate. And it was, for my students, it was a real eye-opener. Now, one other thing. Speaking of commerce and the Commerce Clause, the Sherman Antitrust Act was first used successfully against trade unions because they interfered with interstate commerce through their labor action. Get busting trust, they busted unions.
Right, right.
And that's America.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll just offer a comment for those who don't really know, because Teddy Roosevelt is always lifted up as this. They called him the president of the modern era. That he somehow transcended the previous century. He was a white supremacist by every account, and one of the quotes that he's attributed to, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm not reading it, but it said that he didn't subscribe to the notion that the only good Indian was a dead Indian, but he would suggest that 9 out of 10 are, and he wouldn't want to inspect the 10th very too closely. So he basically fully subscribed to the notion that dead Indians were the only good Indians, and so that's Teddy Roosevelt, who, by the way, was the governor of the state of New York and the president of the United States. So he would have had some familiarity, if unless completely ignored, the role that the Haudenosaunee had played in securing peace and even influencing some of Ben Franklin once said, what a shame it would be if 6 nations of ignorant savages could form a scheme, a union that seemed indissoluble when 10 or a dozen English colonies, so much more to gain, could not seem to do the same. So they were envious of what we had formed in terms of our confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, the 6 nations, and he basically used it as leverage to shame white men to do the same. So, all right, let me go to another caller. William, if you call back a third time, we're going to have words. No, I'm just kidding. All right, caller, you're up next. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yes, this is you.
Hi, John. Hi, Reggie. So I'm going to make this very quick. I'm going to email you, John, because I want to try to arrange for the film to be a fundraiser for BAI, and I will find a place, and you can come and speak. But but on the same level of importance, I want to let the listeners know that they should Google on their device, phone, whatever they have, these 2 words, New, N-E-W, Day, D-A-Y. And there's a group that is involved with the Pacifica National Board who is trying to take over BAI, and they are trying to change the bylaws. And the IGM needs to get on the air and let the listeners know, because they have a right to know. So I'm going to email you about showing the film
Well,
as an
I
event. But
appreciate it, and
thank
as
you.
you know, I used to do events downstairs. But when the cafe was open, I used to
But
do
there's no
events on a.
more up downstairs.
Yeah, I know. I used to do it every
Yeah.
every month, stream a film or screen a film of some sort,
Yeah.
and I look forward to doing it. I'd love to do something here in the area that would be a benefit to WBAI. So I appreciate the call. I appreciate it. Thanks. All right, caller, you're up next. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there. Yes, this is Elle from Long Island. I have a question that I would like to ask you. The question is, can you refer us to any indigenous writers who have researched and have the history of a nation of the indigenous people here and their relationship, or basically their history? And I pose this question for this reason. Many of us, when we think of the Jewish Holocaust in Germany, we think of 5 million people. When we think of the Holocaust of Africans that were enslaved here, brought here in slavery at a particular time period, we think of basically 100 to 125 million people. That is those who were thrown overboard, and the records that were kept by even many of the, shall we say, investors and insurance companies here in New York and in the Americas. So there's got to be a group of people that has done the history, so that instead of, like, when I listen to something, the first thing I say, well, I'd really like to read up on it and find out some facts. For example, I know that that's Dr. David Imhotep, is the first historian of African history. In fact, BAI had him on when he presented his book. The first Americans were Africans. He did 2 versions of that book. It went for $39, $40. Now you can find it for perhaps $1,000 if you can get it. It's out of print and they don't want that information out. So printed word or even picture, hieroglyphics, picture story, or even a person that tells the history of a great king, Mansa Musa, the history that came down, the history that's translated by the indigenous people. And in closing, I will say this. I do remember there were 5 CDs at the time that were put out. It was Color 1. Oh, I might mess up the title, but it was a DV that gave the historical history of brought to the Americas from a certain period to a certain period.
Well, let me address. Can I respond to some of? Can I respond to some of your comments? I mean, first off, and I make no bones about. I don't subscribe to the notion of any single point origin theory for Native people on this continent. So when I hear people say that Americans were Africans, I think there may be some of the first people here may be among or Africans may be among them, but I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to any of these single point origin theories. Not the Bering Strait, not solely Africans and not solely Polynesians. I think there's a likelihood that there was a mixture of people who made it here through various times and oftentimes needed to have some collaboration and corroboration to survive. So the thing that I say, and I say it in my film, that we as Ongwe are created by this land. They were not created. We're not created by any other land. We didn't escape another continent to come here. We didn't. We weren't in some sort of hot pursuit of freedom that was being denied to us someplace else. This land created us. So that's the position that I take. Now, I'm not suggesting that there hasn't been a relationship between black people and indigenous people here. I think it goes without saying that existed. In fact, the Seminoles are an amalgamation of some of the more resistant men and women who were enslaved, and the native people of that area. That's where their origins from, and the amount of connection that existed between so many of native peoples and those who managed to escape bondage in slavery and were assisted by native people. I always have to remind people that anybody who thinks that Harriet Tubman had only divine intervention that allowed her to navigate lands that she was completely unfamiliar with, I'm sorry, that just doesn't account for the fact that there were native people that assisted much of that Underground Railroad from the very start. So as far as books, look, just because something is in print doesn't make it true. I'm going to say that because most of the books that I've read were not written by native people about native people. The thing I'll say about The Long Hope, it is our film. It is a native film about native people, created by native people, and I think that does matter. And so I always have to be. I'm always somewhat hesitant when somebody tries to present a written word as necessarily, well, for lack of a better word, I guess, gospel, because I think that oftentimes it all depends on the perspective of the writer. The person who's being regarded as historian oftentimes has their own agenda, and obviously my messaging here is one that probably has my agenda associated with it. So and I make no bones about it. So I appreciate the call. I know that there are some books that are out there, but as far as about a specific nation and the specific relationship between Africans and indigenous people here, I don't know of a native book that has been written that I've read. So that I can vouch for. So. Probably got time for one more caller. So one more caller, and then we'll wrap it up here. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, John. It's Donna Fanboyle.
There's Donna. How you doing, Donna?
I'm doing good.
Well, it's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow, this is the
I just
blast from
wanted
the
to,
past.
I'm sure you already know that Representative Christopher Rebb has introduced legislation once again to ban mascots here in Pennsylvania, and then a portion of it is also to help with some funding for the schools who change these mascots. So right now, I think it made it through. He's got a second person who's co-sponsoring it, and it's made it to the Department of Education. So it's moving along a little bit, and I'm hoping that since we've had a little change of color here, it's not as purple as it was. Now it's a little bit bluer. That maybe there'll be some people in there that'll see fit to.
Well, as you know, the culture wars plays a big factor in this thing. It's one of the reasons why in New York I avoided the state legislature altogether and went directly to the Department of Education. But in New York, the Department of Education had the power to issue a ban.
Yes.
And I know not all states have another agency option other than going through the legislature. I appreciate what Rapp's doing, and anything that I can do to help. What I'd like to do, I mentioned it to you, I think, in an email. I'm going to be a part of doing an event at Hofstra where the Commissioner of Education, Betty Rosa, and a few Native people from the area, and others. I know even Jay Rosenstein was interested in possibly sitting in on a panel discussion about Native mascots. And frankly, I'd like to get some of our adversaries involved. So I'm hoping that's going to happen in the spring, and maybe we can convince Representative Rapp to make the trip out to Long Island.
That would be great. And I did send you, I think in Messenger, a link to an upcoming event with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is having a lunch and learn, like Zoom. And so I'm hoping that you'll get a chance to, because everybody will get a chance to comment. I'm hoping that you'll get a chance to speak as well.
What day is that on?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I sent you a link.
Okay,
to
I'll
it.
look for it and I'll try to participate.
That would be great. Yeah, because your knowledge would really help them to understand.
Well, and by the way, share that video, the latest video that came from actually our production company doing this film. I did that whole piece on how I pulled off the mascot band in New York. So share that one as well, and maybe that'll help. Don, I want to thank you for calling. We're just about out of time. I'm glad you made it in. It's great to hear your voice, and we'll talk soon. All right, folks, that's it. Again, tonight at the Children's Museum at 6:30, we will be screening The Long Hope. I hope you'll come out and you'll join us and participate in the Q&A afterwards. And I'll be back. I'll be back and do it again. Otherwise, I'll be back on the air next week, even if I'm doing it from my home on the Cattaraugus territory of Seneca Nation. This is John Kane, Resistance Radio. I want to thank you for listening and joining me. Yahweh.